if you can just explain that process a little bit.
Well, it's hard to envision completely without knowing what a regular birth maybe looks like. But generally, we take care of the mother and the baby together. The baby, when it's born, there's no resuscitation measures if we are expecting that the baby has passed. So the whole management of the labor would be very different because we aren't listening to the baby's heartbeat. We're not, cheering and happy and, kind of a thing. So the atmosphere is very different to begin with. But when the baby comes off, we would clean it and dry it off and identify it still. So the baby, more of a keepsake value, we would write out the bracelets that normally the parents would get, for the baby to be going back and forth from the nursery, and we give those to the mother so that she has those as a keepsake. We usually put together a memory box, and they sell them. There are companies that sell the memory box, and it's just a small little, velvet or satin box that has, a card that you could write the baby's name and date of birth and weight and put footprints if they want, get a lock of hair, the baby bracelets and all those things that we put together in a little memory box. We take pictures of the baby and give those to the parents if they wish. If they don't, we keep them in the memory box. Most families take that memory box home with them, but some families it's difficult to deal with and they don't want it, but then we save them and they may come back a year later and say, you know what, I rethought it, I want that box, so maybe they come back 3 days later and they'll have that. So we keep that forever if they don't take it home with them right then and there, upon discharge. We would often, once we clean the baby and we dry them off, we wrap them in a blanket and we give them to mom and or dad to hold if that's what they want, so that they can bond with the baby in any way that they can. For many, many times this is the only opportunity they'll have to hold the baby, take pictures. It depends really on what the family wants. We try to be very family-focused in these situations because this is the only memory that this family will be able to create with this child. So we often will, have pastoral care come in and do a blessing. If the baby is born alive and is expected to pass on soon after, we'll have a priest or a rabbi, whatever, come in and do whatever kind of baptism or blessing that is appropriate for their cultural, differences and whatnot. There's an organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep that's actually a volunteer group of photographers that will come in and take pictures free of charge for these families. We've had families come in with baptismal gowns, with outfits, Christmas outfits, whatever, and they dress the baby and they take pictures. We've had family members, take pictures with the baby as well. So it's really about what the family wants for this experience. So that's kind of what happens at the birth or the few hours right after the birth.
Do you think there is a big difference between when the family knows beforehand that they're going to have birth to a stillbirth or if it's a surprise?
Yes.
Does that affect the bereavement process, you think, for the families?
Well, it's hard to say. I think that the differences are that, as with any death, when it's a shock, so it takes longer to process. A family who finds out, let's say in the doctor's office, that the baby has no heartbeat and then comes in has that shock value that's there is difficult to deal with because they don't have any time to prepare. They don't have any time to think about, now I lay me down to sleep, and organizing a photographer or going to the store and picking out an outfit for the baby to wear for pictures. They haven't had the chance to process all of that and prepare. We have had patients that have come in who know that the baby has a condition that's not compatible with life. And sometimes the baby will pass before it's born, and other times the baby will, they may choose. They may find out at, let's say, the 20th week that the baby has a condition that's not compatible with life. And some of them will opt to carry on with the pregnancy, but the baby spontaneously dies anyway at 28 weeks, let's say. Sometimes they'll go to 37 weeks and deliver, and then the baby will die, an hour or two later. So that kind of a situation, whether the baby dies before it's born or a few minutes after it's born, that family, because they knew that the baby had that condition that's not compatible with life, they've had time to prepare. So, yes, it's still very painful, but they have this sense of preparation. They have the ability to arrange a funeral and to think about all those things and like I said, organizing the photographers and picking out a gift and, an outfit for the baby to wear, and to prepare the family, their other children, let's say. Whereas when it's a shock, they don't even know what to tell their other child because they just found out themselves. They're still processing the information. So in that sense, it's very, very different. I think losing a child is an overwhelming burden for anyone, regardless of whether you were prepared or not. That initial, when you find out, nothing in the world could ever prepare you for that moment. But time does give them the opportunity to make sense of it and prepare as best they could. It's an interesting fact. I don't know if this will help you at all, but we get more complimentary letters from our patients who have had babies that died than we do from babies that go home healthy and well. They feel that I'm very proud of our program here, I will say, because we do, and it's because I see the reflection from the patients. The patients will send us letters saying, "You made my baby's death beautiful."
Oh, would you say that it's like a really high statistic?
No.
It's low?
No, yeah. I'm actually doing my monthly stats right now. I have 2 fetal losses out of 207 deliveries, less than 1% usually.
Wow. Do you play a role in like the funeral part, or is that strictly the family on their own?
No, yeah, it's the family. We have if the baby is born, New York state law says that if the baby is born over 20 weeks, regardless if it was born dead or alive, the family has to bury it. So that's a private burial no matter what. Under 20 weeks, there's a little bit more leeway. So to give some closure to these families, we've created a program where we have a communal burial. So if the baby is born at less than 20 weeks gestational age, we offer a service where we have a communal burial, and the babies we'll have multiple babies in the same small coffin, and twice a year we have a burial. And it gives the parents a place to go, because they would have to. A private burial is very expensive. Even if it's just for a baby, it could still be several $1,000s. Whereas this program that we've created is free, so the families can come to the funeral, so to speak, and we offer it, like I said, twice a year. So it's a funeral mass, and it's a gravesite burial, and they have this opportunity to have a funeral for their child free of charge, and to have a place to go on the anniversary of its death and put some flowers or go to a place to visit. And so that's the only part that I have in the funeral planning, is if they decide to be a part of that program, because I'm on the committee that runs that program. So in that sense, I would go into the room and offer them. So for patients less than 20 weeks, I would go into the room with a consent form and offer them their options. They can choose to privately bury if they want, but if they don't want to or don't have the means, they can choose to have this communal burial, or the hospital. There was a third option that the hospital would discard, but basically that means that we're going to bury it anyway.
Is burial the only option, or are they allowed to do like cremation ceremonies?
Well, we don't do cremation here. It's something that we've thought about. If the family wants to do a private, cremation, that's totally up to them. But the hospital at this point in time, our burial is a burial. Our, whatever we do with it is a burial at this point. So we haven't begun cremation. We don't have a contract with a crematory or things like that. So I'm the clinical nurse specialist. So I'm a master's prepared nurse.
So you don't have to ever tell the families, right? That's a different department?
No, that would be the physician. Yeah, the physician would always be the one to tell the family that the baby has passed.